Good evening, everyone. You're having a good week, and glad to see you here tonight. Tonight, we're going to continue our discussion of the bardos of this life. We started on that last week, and we're going to continue this week. But before we get started, as we customarily do, we take a moment to empty our minds, which should be easy because we've been meditating for the better part of 50 minutes. So we've become on our own through our practice of mindfulness, a clear vessel to contain the Dharma teachings and to establish the correct motivation for our receiving Dharma teachings and our practice of Buddha Dharma in general, which is altruistic motivation that as Mahayana practitioners of the great vehicle, the great vehicle is the great vehicle that holds all of us, making ultimately no distinction between us and anyone else. So from the provisional point of view, we still make distinctions. From the definitive point of view, we are no different than anyone else. So our practice, whatever we do, has some reflection and benefit on others. So we practice as Mahayana practitioners for the benefit of all sentient beings primarily, as well as ourselves. And so to receive these Dharma teachings, we do that to benefit others. So that in mind, prepare to listen to the teachings and try to really hear what they see, what they are about. Then we take some time afterwards and think about them. We contemplate the teachings. And then once we have developed some sort of confidence in what we've heard and it resonates with us, and we feel that it can be true and useful, that we meditate on them. And meditation is an action word in the sense that meditation is, from the Buddhist standpoint, putting these teachings into practice in our daily lives for the benefit of others. So with that in mind, we can start tonight's teaching. And last time we met, we were talking again about the bardos of this life. And we talked about the bardo itself of the present life. And that's one of three that we experience as living beings in this life. So to refresh our memories, we have the bardo of this life, the bardo of meditation, and the bardo of sleep. And as I mentioned last time, the bardo of this life is kind of like an all-encompassing bardo state that contains the other two. So we experience the other two as a part of this life, but we make a distinction between the other two because they're kind of like bardo states within the bardo states, so to speak. And I mentioned last week that even outside of the dream state in this life and the meditation practices that we do in this life that are bardo states, this life also contains other opportunities for being in this bardo or intermediary state. So for example, we could say that the space between the in and out breath is a bardo state. There's a very small pause between the time that we inhale and exhale. And it is in these spaces that some kind of experience of awakening or shunyata can creep in, even if only for an instant. Another example we can make is when we are engaged in some sort of Buddhist ritual. And from my tradition, we say that this is closely associated with receiving some sort of tantric initiation or empowerment. So the great patriarch Sakya Pandita, in his elucidating the sage's intent, he made a very clear point of mentioning that being part of the ritual of empowerment was a unique opportunity to experience awakening. Because we go into ritual and we suspend our normal belief system and we become very receptive and open to having a spiritual experience. Possibly it's because of being in this long, prolonged meditative state, which you're asked to encourage in, that your ordinary perceptions about reality become suspended and they reconfigure, and your mind becomes attenuated to the notion that everything you were experiencing, including you and yourself, is deity, mantra, and wisdom. And then the Lama, the Vajra master, is there to help facilitate this. So that is kind of how the Vajrayana works, which we'll probably go into at some point. And I think that that provides a good sequel to tonight's main discussion, in which we will briefly talk about the idea of meditation as a bardo, or an intermediary state. So the Bardo of Meditation is actually the best opportunity we have in this life to have an experience of a somewhat prolonged period of time where our conditioned and delusive and tainted thoughts slip away. And we can have the possibility that in that intermediary state where we're not dwelling on these things, we're willing to let them go and just be and do what they are going to do, that we have the possibility of a spiritual experience of shunyata, or awakening. The Bardo of Meditation begins when you fall into that state of meditative absorption. And I'm sure we've had that. All of you have had some of that experience as you sit here or in your meditation practice at home, and ends when you fall out of it. During the time that you spend in this state of meditative absorption, we develop some aptitude in the ability to concentrate, and then the delusive experiences of our ordinary mind are recognized, and then they are, to a certain extent, subjugated, or they liberate themselves on their own. They just fall away. And this happens in a variety of ways, depending on our own ability. But even with some minimal experience in meditation, we start to develop the ability to know when our conscious is being hijacked by our discursive and afflictive thoughts, and that we forget we are meditating. So that's the first thing that we kind of start to focus on when we meditate, is to be aware enough to know when we're being hooked and we're drawn away from our attentive thought, our mindful state of being. And when we recognize this is happening, and we can let go of those thoughts and return to our meditative state, with the mind settled in a state without distraction, no matter what we are meditating on, we have this underlying state or bardo of ease, stillness, and unwavering awareness. That this is present with us as we meditate. So in this way, with the mind completely relaxed, it experiences what we call the state of samadhi, that is liberated of concepts, of judgments, and of preference. and the intermediary state of this life, like a calm and vast ocean or a wide open sky, this meditative bardo opens up expansively, allowing whatever's to appear to just be, that we're able to just let it alone. So being able to practice meditation in this way is really foundational in terms of our end-of-life practices, when we will experience many strong sensations and we will be pulled in many directions. So it's actually important in meditation to have some experience of thoughts arising and you getting hijacked by them. But again, through our mindfulness, our attentive awareness, recognizing that, not trying to push them away or keep them, just recognizing that, and then gently directing our mind back to that centeredness towards the object of meditation so that we can continue to sit in that meditative samadhi. So this is a foundational technique for the practice of Bardo yoga. Next week, we'll talk about the last of the 3 bardos of this life, and that being the bardo of the dream state. But for tonight, we're going to finish up now and recite the sharing of merits and the refuges.